All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive, highly technical transboundary trade battle over environmental assets. We are going to exhaustively analyze exactly how 905 Wood's digital refinery acts as what we can call the Sentient Bridge. It's this incredible intersection where chaotic, heavy industrial grit meets high-purity Silicon Valley intelligence. By operationalizing cutting-edge edge AI and rigorous data architectures, this Sentient Bridge completely replaces weakened analog provincial oversight with a heavy-duty cryptographic digital shield. As we'll see, this is absolutely crucial because it definitively secures Ontario's industrial leadership within the global circular bioeconomy, taking a huge logistical liability and transforming it into an ironclad asset.
Here's a quick roadmap for us today. We'll track the looming waste crisis, check out the hardware building the Sentient Bridge, walk through the operational workflow, break down explainable compliance, and finally look at the audit-proof output documentation.
So, Section 1, the looming waste crisis. This is all being driven by some intense geopolitical and ecological chaos. Check out how these impending crises just stack up. It really proves the absolute necessity for rigorous, data-backed waste diversion. January 2026 brings the municipal, industrial, commercial, and institutional exit, which essentially orphans an estimated 4 million tons of waste right alongside these intense USMCA protectionist audits. Then, fast forward to 2029 and the Rewood Initiative enacts a strict, legally binding landfill ban on all clean wood, and by 2034, Ontario faces complete landfill exhaustion. For supply chains, this is literally a ticking clock. Moving waste across the Ontario-Michigan corridor without verified, data-backed purity just isn't a headache anymore. It's an existential financial threat to an entire fleet.
And this right here perfectly illustrates why this matters so much to the bottom line. This is the financial delta of the CIRCL levy in action. A single 19-ton mothership trailer of mixed waste carries a massive $60 per ton penalty that totals over $1,100 per haul. But if you verify that load as pure clean wood right at the source, that rate plummets to just $5 a ton. You're preserving over $1,000 of capital per single load, and you can imagine how that scales to hundreds of thousands of dollars saved weekly across an active fleet. This is exactly why general contractors are prioritizing verified purity. It's a high-integrity operational strategy that actively bypasses financial chaos.
Moving on to Section 2, building the Sentient Bridge using edge AI hardware. So how do you survive this intensely litigious environment? You move the brain of the digital refinery right to the front line. The definitive hardware and OS core for this? The Google Pixel 10 Pro. Powered by the 3nm Google Tensor G5 system on a chip and running the latest Android 16 operating system, this thing isn't just for snapping photos. It actually operates as an industrial-grade compliance gate. It uses integrated LiDAR and edge tensor processing units to capture spatial and visual data of loaded dumpsters. Meanwhile, the Titan M2 secure element locks down the exact moment of classification. It creates this unforgeable root of trust right there in the mud of a construction site.
And this is where the real magic happens. Think of it like trying to fit an entire supercomputer into a frontline toolbox. By operationalizing the advanced AI compute architecture, specifically the Light-RT AI stack and turboquant compression, the system literally shrinks massive frontier neural models so they can run directly on the Pixel's edge hardware natively. The result? You get instant visual intelligence that brings data center-level analytical rigor straight to an operator's hands, all without even needing a cell connection. It completely shields operators from hazardous transshipment penalties by giving them a legally defensible decision instantly.
Section 3. Let's walk through the 905 Wood digital refinery operational workflow, from the initial intake all the way to compliance.
This 905 Wood digital refinery workflow is so smooth, it seamlessly chains specialized, operationalized AI models together into what feels like a high-speed relay race. Say a customer calls in for a request for quote, or RFQ. Well, Claude Opus 4.6 instantly parses the voice intent and material streams. Down at the curb, the edge hardware leverages Light-RT and Gemini 3 Flash for immediate visual classification. Now, if a load is ambiguous, say it falls into a 70 to 85% confidence band, it automatically escalates to a triage gate where Gemini 3.1 Pro and Claude Sonnet 4.6 act as a dual model guard against visual fallacies. Finally, all the really heavy lifting, like live density and carbon modeling, is crunched by GPTOS 120B on the back end.
Just think about the sheer speed here for a second. We're talking sub-500 millisecond edge classification. This directly avoids that $60 per ton penalty before the truck ever even shifts into drive. The operator aims the device, and in less than half a second, the AI provides a definitive binary answer. It's either clean framing lumber or contaminated chemically treated waste. And following the precautionary principle, if there is absolutely any ambiguity, the load gets rejected. This speed removes all systemic logistical friction, empowering workers to make perfect decisions at the speed of thought.
By verifying purity right there at the curb, walking floor fleets can be routed directly to bioenergy hubs. This successfully diverts a massive 66% of collected material, completely bypassing the tipping fees and chronic, grueling congestion of traditional transfer stations. You are no longer wasting fuel or driver hours just sitting in lines at intermediate facilities. It wonderfully maintains the heavy industrial grit of traditional hauling, but it scales Silicon Valley intelligence into a highly profitable, extraordinarily lean operational loop.
0.75. That number right there is the exact carbon removal credit yield per dry ton of clean wood. By tracking avoided landfill emissions through groundwater and air quality environmental sensors, 905 Wood doesn't just manage waste anymore, they actually meant a carbon dividend. This transforms what used to be a traditional disposal cost center into a highly liquid environmental asset, which perfectly positions their partners as preferred carbon-neutral suppliers for global brands that demand sustainable supply chains.
All right, Section 4, let's talk about OREG 347, explainable compliance, and how this system bridges AI directly to provincial law. You see, to survive intense border audits and transboundary forced labor import bans, all of this operational intelligence must be legally tethered. Vertex AI pipelines are set up to automatically ingest thousands of pages of incredibly complex environmental regulations. It dynamically links the physical characteristics of the waste directly to specific provincial frameworks, like the Ontario Regulation 102/94 governing waste audits. This entirely removes the guesswork for human compliance teams.
This is where we see explainable compliance in action. A centralized, high-performance AlloyDB cloud database completely replaces deteriorating paper manifests with a tamper-proof digital backbone. So when a skeptical customs inspector questions a shipment's purity, this architecture provides instant, granular proof. It explicitly cites the Ontario government OREG 347, specifically the General Waste Management Codes. It proves definitively that any hazardous materials exceeding strict auto-reject thresholds were aggressively excluded from the load.
This digital scaffolding is absolutely mandatory to prove labor value content compliance. By automating verification and compliance protocols from that very first request for quote, right down to final delivery, the system confirms the transportation services meet the mandated percentage of value produced by workers at specific wage levels. It's your ultimate hedge against the very real risk of 25% retaliatory tariffs during USMCA sunset reviews, effectively securing the duty-free preferential status of your materials.
Finally, Section 5, Audit-Proof PDF Documentation. Let's look at the ultimate output arsenal. Every single generated PDF is designed in this monospace, fax-ready typography that's specifically formatted for the realities of border officers. It automatically embeds these output PDF documentation features, a definitive 9-point certificate of origin, which is huge for avoiding devastating 150-day audit holds at Detroit ports. It proves the HS 3825.0 wholly obtained classification, while a cryptographic hash printed directly alongside a load-specific QR code guarantees the document remains completely unaltered from the point of origin.
I absolutely love this hold-to-seal mechanism. A 2.0-second haptic lock captures the precise AI model version and kernel hash at the exact moment of classification. What this means is the output documentation isn't just some educated guess made by a dispatcher, it's frozen in Vertex ML metadata, tying the physical GPS coordinates, accurate to within 1 meter, directly to the specific AI iteration. It literally renders the output entirely court-ready, RPA defensible, and totally immune to human alteration. Now, if we look at the digital refinery application workflow UI and UX, it utilizes a very authoritative, high-contrast industrial aesthetic. A standout feature is decoupled billing, so the client clearly sees the thousands of dollars saved in avoided levies, while 905 Wood transparently retains the minted carbon dividend. Meanwhile, the risk and reward ledger explicitly tracks mitigation statuses against potential AI hallucinations, making sure the client has absolute visibility into both their operational savings and their compliance strength.
There's a quote from the source material that really hits the nail on the head regarding why procurement teams rely on this system. When you're staring down a transboundary trade dispute, vague paper manifests will get your entire fleet delayed, heavily fined, or just completely turned around. This documentation provides a frictionless path that actively protects corporate margins under aggressive border review. It shifts compliance from being a reactive defense into a massive proactive advantage. To really put this intelligence into perspective, the state of Michigan is currently spending $39 million to digitize a 4.25 billion-page physical archive. It's an absurd, massive capital expenditure that the digital refinery workflow bypasses entirely through native API-linked compliance, building a publicly accessible modern database from day one. Instead of drowning in deteriorating physical records, the entire chain of custody is structurally digitized before the truck even leaves the yard. Ultimately, what we're doing here is replacing weakened analog provincial oversight with a heavy-duty digital shield. The days of just loading up a dumpster with unverified mixed waste and hoping it clears inspection? Those days are over. The future of the global circular bioeconomy relies entirely on transforming that analog chaos into verified audit-proof purity at the exact point of origin.
So, I'll leave you with this final question as we look toward the 2026 trade precipice. Is your supply chain a chaotic liability, or is it a sentient bridge? Because when those environmental regulations tighten and the USMCA audits begin in earnest, relying on this level of digitized waste traceability won't just be a nice competitive advantage, it's going to be the only viable way left to operate.